You may know I'm not a native Michigander, but after nearly 30 years here, that hardly seems to matter, it seems. I am you, and we are the Lions faithful. I actually grew up a Washington fan, but in middle school, my next-door neighbor loved the Lions. His family was from Detroit, and that was when I first developed a fondness for this long-beleaguered team. My favorite Lion was Lem Barney. I liked Greg Landry, too, and it was an absolute thrill when I got to meet both of them about 25 years later.
Mitchell gets to Sanders. Sanders has got some room to operate.
And I was, of course, a Barry Sanders fan. Like me, he's a native Kansan. And like me, he came to Detroit via Oklahoma. And so when I moved to Detroit in 1995, the Lions helmet fit me pretty well. And when the Lions moved downtown to Ford Field, I immediately signed up for season tickets. And my son Griffin and I started our own Detroit tradition.
Detroit and Reichel just down at 8 seconds left.
No, he can't do that. It was fourth down.
Fourth down.
He couldn't do that. The game's over.
He did it.
I got initiated pretty quickly. The Lions were often confounding. From Bobby Ross's soul-searching,
Detroit wins the toss. They give the Bears the ball. Detroit takes the win. 40-yard field goal, Edinger. Good.
to Marty Mornhinweg taking the wind instead of the ball in overtime.
Personal foul, face mask, number 98 defense.
And no team has been more aggrieved by ridiculous and inept officiating.
There's a kick. It is up. It is no good.
Sure, Buffalo Bills fans can tell you about wide right.
Ernest Biner. Fumble the ball, and Denver has recovered. Oh, my.
And Cleveland fans still talk about the fumble, but it sounds a lot better than completing the process, or we're picking up the flag, a 10-second runoff, or the most recent indignity, Decker reported as eligible. I am not the fair weather type. When I'm in for keeps. After the 0-16 season, friends wondered if I would give up my tickets. Absolutely not. For starters, it's players. I've been able to watch Barry and Herman and Matthew and Calvin. And beyond the Lions, Ford Field has let me watch the likes of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, and yes, insufferable as he may be, Aaron Rodgers. But more than that, I believe that a rich life means having passion, and a rooting interest is passion. Heartbreaking? Sure. Infuriating? Oh, yes. But by being through almost 30 years of living and often dying with the Detroit Lions, this year has been all the more extraordinary. I have rejoiced on the mountaintop because I have lived in the valley.
I wanted this job bad because I felt like I knew this community. I played here.
By staying in the fold, I was here when Moses arrived to finally lead us out of the wilderness. And heaven knows I had bought into too many false prophets. Steve Mariucci was going to turn everything around. I was sure of that. Matt Millen, now there's a guy who knows football. Matt Patricia, he's a genius, and we got him. But after so many bad dates, I finally found Mr. Right.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? I think it's that right there. It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. All you guys that were in here. It's our core foundation, man.
I've always been a fan of Grit. Grit was the name of a delightful rural newspaper introduced to me by my grandfather. Spending a lot of time in the South, I do love grits for breakfast, and shrimp and grits would probably be my death row meal. And grit is what I want from my football team. Dan, you had me at grit.
We're going to get up, and on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
While some rolled their eyes at his war on kneecaps, I found myself believing in Dan Campbell, which, to be honest, really didn't matter. What mattered was that the guys in the room believed in Dan Campbell. And he believed in them. And with every seemingly crazy decision to go for it on fourth down or fake a punt, he was telling them, I believe in you. And he did it so often that they started to believe in themselves. Now, of course, I want the Lions to win, but a more accurate way of saying it is I don't want this season to end. This kind of joy, this family that it's created, it is such a rare thing. I fear it'll never quite feel this way again, no matter how much success might be ahead. I just want this to last, because I have lived in the valley. Just let me linger on the mountaintop a little longer. You know, I've always been jealous of places like Baltimore and Pittsburgh and New England that are always in the mix, always something to root for in January. Isn't it great fun? That's going to do it for this morning. Thank you so much for being here. Meet the Press coming up next. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Flashpoint. And go Lions.